Let's move on to Android basics then. And Warren, do you want to take it away and talk to us about the Settings app?
So now we come to that segment where we talk about after finishing your Android installation, we talk about things like the home screen, which we talked about last week. And today we want to talk about the settings. Of course, you want to be able to go in there and change the settings and things like that. And of course, sometimes what happens is that when you get your Android phone, some carriers, for some example, do not know how to properly adjust your APNs to make your internet and multimedia services work. And as a result of that, you need to go into the settings. So today we're going to go into the settings, explore the settings, see what we have in the settings and areas that you could adjust things if things are not working for you. So we're thinking of this like your control panel on your computer. So with that, let's go ahead and turn on our phone. So I'm going to swipe down with 3 fingers. That's how you bring down your quick panel, or you could swipe down with 2 fingers, which brings you to the notification, and swipe down again with 2 fingers, and that takes you to the quick panel. I'll demonstrate both. So I swipe down with 2 fingers.
Notification shade, 9:16 a.m.
If I swipe down again with 2 fingers,
Quick settings.
that is in the quick settings, and that's the quick panel. Now I'm going to go home, swipe up with 2 fingers from the bottom.
Pixel launcher, folder, money, 4 more items.
So I'm back to the home now. Swipe down with 3 fingers to take me to that quick panel, which is the quick settings. There
Quick
we
settings.
go. Quick settings. So what we're looking for here is at the bottom of the tiles, just above the notification, because you still have the notification below that quick panel, below that quick settings. And to the right there is an item that says open settings. That's where it will take us to the settings. But here in the quick panel, we have things like
Wi-Fi, mesh, switch on, Wi-Fi signal full. Mobile data, switch off. Battery saver, switch off. Do not disturb, switch off. Flashlight, switch off. Auto rotate screen, switch off. This device is connected to Google 5 VPN. Edit order of settings, button. Open settings, button.
and then there's the open settings.
Settings, search settings.
When we tap on open settings, the good thing is that if you're looking for a particular thing, you could tap on the search and you could quickly jump to what you're looking for. But the purpose of this is to go through and see what we have here in our system settings, including those areas where you could find things like the APNs and all of that. So starting from the top, this is what we've got.
Wi-Fi, connected to mesh and list.
So here you can go into Wi-Fi and manage Wi-Fi's if you're having problem with the one that you're particularly connected to and you want to switch to another one. For example, I got maybe like 3 different routers in my home. I could switch back and forth, but I kind of prefer staying on the Google Mesh. So let's go down below that.
Connected devices, Bluetooth, Android Auto, driving mode, NFC.
Here's where you can go in for Bluetooth related things and or the other things that it announced, including Android Auto and all of that. Now we go down some more.
Apps and notifications, assistant, recent apps, default apps.
This is important. This is where you go in and check things like, the apps and the notifications and how you want to manage those things. You want to change how certain apps behave in certain conditions, or maybe at nighttime, you don't want them to come on or whatever. You want to go in here and make those changes in the apps and notification area. And you can also go either clear cache or manage permissions and all of that. All of that is located right here in the apps and the notification area. And moving on, we get to
battery, 45%, should last until about 6:00 p.m. Battery.
I should have charged my battery, but it says I have 45%, which is good enough for this podcast. I'm not watching any videos. So here you can go in and change battery management, or, you want to optimize certain things so that you have the battery saver turned on and all of that. This is the area you go into.
Display, styles, wallpapers, screen timeout, font size, display.
So here you can go in here and change those display, most especially when you first set up your Android. By default, it's 30 seconds to lock the screen, to shut off the screen. So you want to go in here and change how you want it to be, or if you want to set the brightness, lower down the brightness, or set it on a schedule, or use adaptive brightness adjustments, or whatever the case may be. This is the area that you go in and make such changes. Now let's move on.
Sound and vibration. Volume. Haptics. Do not disturb. Sound and vibration.
Isn't this important? You want to change that ringtone and put that one that your girlfriend or boyfriend loves or your hubby loves. That kind of beautiful side, beautiful setting there. You can go in there and make all of those changes and you customize ringtones and all of that. This is where you go in.
Storage. 71% used. 18.32 GB free.
At 18 point something gigs left, I don't have too much to mess around with. All right, but you can go in here, and in here also is where you find things like the files, so you can browse things. But this is where you go.
Privacy. Permissions. Account activity. Personal data. Privacy.
This is very important, most especially if you're running Android 10 or higher. I think also Pi does have some permission control. So you want to go in here. The first time I think it was on Pi, and I realized how many of my apps were getting my location and all of that. And so with that introduction of Pi, you could change and allow who can have location permissions and who cannot have your location permissions. So this is an important area that you need to go in there and set those things that you want and those things that you don't want to have access to any of your location or access to your microphone, access to your camera, or whatever that you don't want them to have access to. You may even go in there and tell them, hey, I don't have access to any of my phone. Some apps by default want to grab your contacts. Go in here, guys, and make those changes. Let's move on.
Location. On dashboard, the apps have access to location. Location.
It has. It's saying 40 apps have locations. Now, some of these, what this means is that some of them I only set them to only have location when they're launched or when I'm using them, most especially like GPS apps. I don't want them to constantly pinging my location. No. I only want them to have access when I'm using the app. And so you want to go in here as well and do that and set them to only when I'm using the app or never or always or whatever. And then you can also set it to where it says, if I don't use it for X amounts of days, then totally turn it off. Let's move to the next.
Security. Play protect. Screen lock. Face unlock.
Of course, this is self-explanatory. You could go in here and change your PIN, change your pattern, change your passwords. And, if your phone supports face unlock, you can also do that. Or if you have a fingerprint reader, you can also add that in here. If you have maybe like just one and you want to add more fingers to the fingerprint reader, you can go in here and do that as well. Next, let's go down.
Accounts, Duo, Dashlane, and Signal.
So here you go in and find the accounts, and all you hear things like Dashlane and Duo and all of that. If you have Microsoft Outlook, all of them would be here, and even the good old Yahoo, if you have a Yahoo account. All those accounts are located here, including, of course, Google's own account, which would be your account. Let's move on.
Accessibility, screen readers, display, interaction controls.
This is a very important segment because you go in here and find all the accessibility settings and adjust things to your liking. You want to turn Braille back on. If you've installed it, you want to turn the switch on. For people who have dexterity issues, you could go in here and adjust those things. And so this is a very important part that you go into after setting your Android device and make sure that you adjust things to your need, or you happen to be someone who has a little bit of a usable vision, go in here too and make things accessible to the way that you would like them to be. Now, next one.
Digital well-being and parental controls, screen time, app timers, bedtime schedules, digital well-being and parental controls.
This is the part that my kids don't like because I turn off the Wi-Fi.
I hate this part. I hate parental controls. No.
I can hear that, my dear lady. And, sometimes as parents, we need to do that because I don't want my
to be honest, my parents don't do this to me, but I do this to my sister. So.
Yeah,
I'm
because,
a girl.
My kids can be up here at like, maybe 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock or whatever. I don't want them to be on the phone at 12 o'clock or, things like that. So you go in here and manage those things and, say, hey, at 10 o'clock, 10:15. So for me, at 11:15, all the Wi-Fi connectivities for the devices are
I
turned
didn't know
off.
that.
And then, on Fridays and Saturdays, it's a free-for-all kind of thing, So let's move to the next one.
Google services and preferences. Google.
So you go here and adjust all the googly stuff here if you want to.
System, languages, gestures, time, backup, system.
So here is where you go in and you find things like inputs, including the keyboard, or you want to add additional keyboards. So if you install a keyboard, for example, you want to go in here to turn it on, because if you don't go in here, it's not going to show in the list of the keyboards that you have on your phone. But so you go in here, you could also go in here and change things like backup and all of that. And you can also set the phone here if you want to. You could also check for updates here. Now, it may be a little bit different on other phones because I'm doing this on a Pixel device and others are not grouped the way that it is grouped here on the Pixel phone. Let's move to the next one.
About phone, Pixel 4. About phone.
You go in the About phone, and here is where you can see like the model number and the IMEIs and all of that, and the software, legal information, and all of that. You go in here.
Tips and support. Help articles. Phone and chat. Getting started. Tips and support.
That's if you want to communicate with someone from Google and all of that. You can go in there and look at those tips as well.
Tips and support.
And that would be the last item in the settings of the phone. And so I think one thing I forgot to mention earlier, like when I started the first
Security,
part,
Wi-Fi connected to the mesh and list.
in this area where it talks about Wi-Fi, you can go in there, and also that's where you'll find your APNs. But in some phones, like the Motorola phones and Nokia phones, you're going to find it in an area called More Settings, or More, simply says More. And you go in there and you find things like mobile networks and VPNs and all of that. That's the area that you want to go to. And that will be the part of the segment on your system settings, which is a very important part of your phone that you need to be familiar with in order to adjust things to your liking.
And then you mentioned the groupings being different, and I'm going to show you why this is. You might have noticed as well, when Warren was going through the settings, Android gave you a little hint about what was contained in that item if you double click on it. It's useful. It's not, though, comprehensive. So on Warren's Pixel and on my Samsung phone, accessibility is in its own little settings area. I've got my OnePlus 8 here, and accessibility is not in its own setting area. It's in system. But if I go to system in my settings app,
System, language, and keyboard. Time, reset, system updates.
no mention of accessibility at all. I'll just prove to you that it's here.
Interesting, Ed. I didn't know that, and I'm sorry, interrupting you there, but I never knew that the OnePlus has its accessibility within the system settings, and it doesn't even mention that it is in there. And it's a very important feature of the phone, isn't it? Especially for those of us who are blind or have some disabilities.
Yes, germane to this podcast, I would argue. I will just prove to you that it's here, and I haven't just impugned the reputation of OnePlus.
System, disabled, accessibility.
There you go. First item in system. So at least they've promoted it in system.